Assalamu alaikum students. So today's our topic is just reviewing all different kinds of factoring of polynomials. So there were four kinds of factoring we learned in this chapter. One was actually five. One was to find the greatest common factor. Second, when we had difference of squares. When we had trinomials with no a. When we had a trinomial with the a. And then the last one was when we had four terms, how to factor four terms. We learned binomials, trinomials, and polynomials with four terms. So let's do a quick review. Always when you see a topic factorization, always look for a GCF. Then after looking for a GCF, factor out that, then you should look for one of these options. After looking for a GCF, if you see that let's do difference of squares, 2 squared term with a minus sign in between, we know how to do that. We make two parentheses, we have a minus sign in between. Okay, this is only possible when we have a minus sign. This is x squared, x and x, 1 positive, 1 negative, 8, 8. These are the two factors. Okay, second example, I could first always begin with the GCF. Greatest common factor for both in numbers 2, which can divide 18 in 2. For the variables, first you have to make sure that they both have the common variable. M is not common, N is common. So when N is common, you should take with the least exponent as a common factor. So I'm taking this. This divided by 2n gives me 18 divided by 2 gives me 9. M squared comes as is. N divided by n is 1. So we don't have to actually. Minus 2 divided by 2 is 1. I don't have to actually write 1 because then we have n cubed divided by n gives me. Further, please, the last step is not done. Further, look for more factorization. Can I still factor out this? Can I still factor out this? Yes, I can. This copies as is. Both are squared and minus sign in between. So 3m and 3m plus minus n and n. Let's do the next one, a trinomial. Okay, so for a trinomial, what do we look for is for a trinomial, there is no a, so find factors of c that add up to b. Okay, so this is c. So I have a negative 42. The two factors would be 6 and 7. It gives me a negative, so it has to be, this one has to be, bigger number has to be negative. So my two factors would be x plus 6 and minus 7. The next is this one. Look for GCF. Don't assume that this is a. First factor out if there is anything common. 2 is the greatest common factor. I had w squared plus 10w plus 25. Now I can see there is no a. 25 will give me 5 times 5, 25. So my factors would be w plus 5 and w plus 5. Trinomial, slip and slide. Factor out if there is anything common. Yes, 3 is a common factor. 3 times 10 is 30 minus 9x plus 2. Now I can see there is a slip and slide method, meaning I'm going to move this 10 to that side. And my new would be x squared minus 9x plus 20. Once I get this, what I have to do is I have to look for the factors of 20 so that it gives me a negative 9. My two numbers multiplies give me 20. When I add them, it should be a negative 9. The two numbers are which gives me 20 are 4 and 5. And when I add them, it gives me a 9. Make sure it's negative because negative 4 and negative 5 makes it negative 20, positive 20. And negative 4 plus negative 5 gives me a negative 9. So my two factors would be x and x minus 4 minus 5. Now because we multiplied 10 initially, I'm going to divide by 10 here. Now don't forget to slide. We slipped it, now sliding. So reduce the fraction, I get x minus 2 over 5, x minus 1 over 2. Now move this, slide this number next to the variable, this number next to the variable. So my final answer would be 3, 5x minus 2, 2x minus 1. Okay, the last is 4 terms. When you see 4 terms, group them up, separate them, the first two and the last two. Look for the common GCF. So 2, no, not 2 is not common, only a squared. Whenever the variables are common, look for the least power, a squared, and I have 2a minus b plus, I'm going to factor out 5 here, I get 2a minus b. Make sure you have the same binomial here. Once you get the same binomial, then you should make 2, one of this common one and one of the remaining ones, the GCFs. Okay, this is how you do. Now let's do the mixed questions, one of the mixed questions. Okay, so I'm going to do one of the mixed questions so that we are all good to work with. Okay, this one, number 5. First, look for the GCF. Always, if there is a GCF, check for one of the followings, 1, 2, 3, 4. Step 3, check over and see if anything factors again. Okay, so let's do this one. I can see there is a common factor. Always begin with a common factor. It gives me 3w is a common factor. I get 16w4 minus 1. Now this is a squared term, 16w4. This is also a squared term and there's a minus sign in between. So I can apply difference of squares. 16w4 means 4w squared and 4w squared. When we are multiplying, we are adding the powers, okay? So 2 plus 2 is 4. Plus 1 minus 1, difference of squares. This is done, but still you can see you can further factor this one. Squared term, minus squared term. I can copy this one as is. This one further factorizes into 2w plus 1, 2w minus 1. Okay, I'm gonna do one more and then we are good. Okay, so let's do number 14. I can see 4 terms. I'm going to separate into 2 groups. Factor out, common factor is 9 and variables x squared is common with the least one. So I have only x plus y remaining. Here I can factor out negative 1. Because if I factor out positive 1, I will not have the same factors. If I factor out negative 1, negative divided by negative gives me positive, x divided by 1 gives me x, y divided by 1 gives me y with a positive because negative divided by negative is this. Once we have the same factors, same binomials. I can keep that same binomial, and the other one is 9x squared minus 1. Further, I can see that this is a squared term and this is also a squared term. This comes as is and this becomes more factorized. It will be 3x plus 1 minus 1. I hope you understand the concept.